So I bought a 2013 Mustang GT from a salvage reseller. So this car is a salvage title or flood title car, and the person that I bought it from purchased it from some sort of auction, and then they didn't do anything to it, and that's when I picked it up. So after purchasing the car, I brought it home. 5 hours later, I had determined that the engine was full of water and was probably completely trashed, but there didn't seem to be any electronic issues. So if anyone watching, if you know that a flood car is not a good buy because of the electronic issues, yeah, I had the same fear. So I bought the car not knowing if anything electronic had been damaged. Other than looking under the hood, I saw that the fuse box was dry. I didn't smell any mold inside. So I thought it was very strange that a car could look basically like this, have low miles, and well, actually I didn't know. They claimed that they thought the miles were exact, but I didn't know for sure, right? So claimed that it had low miles, didn't smell any water, no actual damage to the car. I thought maybe it was insurance fraud. So I drove maybe 3.5 hours to get the car, and of course I bought it. So after bringing it home, like I said, I get it off the trailer and I pull the intake inlet pipe, and water starts running out of the intake. And it looks like a swamp. So then I check the oil looks fine, but turns out it wasn't fine. So I end up draining it and pulling the plugs out before I ever tried to turn it over. Once I finally flushed out the oil, turned the motor over, it span over, no issues, turned the engine over. Then I decided to put plugs in it, and of course I got the water out of the intake, which I actually didn't do properly at all. I just shoved a whole entire paper towel roll in the intake and dried it, and then I was ready to see if this thing would run. So of course, like I said, I discovered there was no power issues, so no electronic issues, stereo worked, everything worked. I spanned the engine over with no spark plugs in it, and it just turned over perfectly fine. But when it did, and I should have a video I'll throw in here if I do, the water just shot out of the engine. So water shot out in both directions, and I'll show you in just a second, but there's actually rust spots all over this car, like underneath the engine bay, from that water shooting out of the pistons. So it just left splatters of little rust spots from that rusted water that was sitting inside the cylinder. So I thought for sure the engine was trashed. So I went ahead and put some plugs in it, and I started it up, and then all of a sudden, immediately I heard just a nasty knock. I had no idea what this was, but it knocked horribly. So I basically ended up finding out that knock that I was hearing was a bent piston rod. Cylinder number 8, apparently, instead of bending the valves and letting the pressure out wherever, the pressure slapped back on only cylinder number 8. So none of the other pistons ended up having damage. So of course, I go on eBay and I find a piston with a piston arm already attached to it, so I didn't have to mess with that. And I got my my backyard mechanic friend to help me, because I'm on a budget here, and we fixed it. So all in all, I went ahead and replaced the bottom end bearings, even though they didn't need replacing. I was already in there just in case they had water damage. I replaced the cylinder number 8 piston and piston rod with a used part for 80 bucks off eBay. And then we had to pull the head in order to get the piston out, so we ended up doing new head studs. The total new head gasket replacement kit, which comes with a new water pump gasket. So a couple odds and ends. So the price rundown here ended up coming out to be about $15,000 roughly that I paid for the car, and then another $300 or so in parts. And then I ended up paying about $700 or $800 in total labor to the mechanic that helped me do it. Now that might sound like a lot, but in reality, this is a 2013 GT Mustang. It had 30-something thousand miles on it, maybe 32,000 miles, and it's a California special, which helps with the value. I would say this car is probably somewhere in the mid-20s if it was a clean title. So all in all, I'm looking at a little over maybe $16,500 that I have invested in this car. And at this very moment, it's running and driving perfect, and I put about 4,000 miles on it. So I'm gonna show you guys the car.
I know that I can do better. I'm so in love with the chatter. I'm so in love with my little boo. It was written like a letter. Think I was born with the juice. Think I was born with the sauce. Think I was born a little crazy, then I turned out to a boss. Gotta go and get it. I keep running up the digits. Lost my mind, I gotta fix it. Kill the beat, cold killing. Need to change the way I'm living. Never sleeping, I'm tripping. This is forever and ever. We live forever and ever, yeah.
To be an auction car, to be a salvage car, it is absolutely beautiful. There is a couple of little scuffs that you'll find on the car, like any 2013, but this is a pretty much factory. It appears to have lowering springs, although I have not 100% confirmed what they are. But yeah, GT California Special, absolutely beautiful. I love the style of this interior, and it has no electronic issues. So flood car is always a gamble. So I'll pop the hood, I'll show you guys the rust spots that I'm talking about. And these rust spots happened, like my tripod. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. I can. All right, so here's the rust spots. They are all over the car, staining it from where I turned this thing over with no plugs and water was just shooting out. So the first time I did it, I didn't actually record it, but the second time I decided to set up the camera and it still shot out a little bit of water. So the whole reason that I purchased this car is because my insurance on my old cars were really expensive. I've had a couple of Mustangs and I've had a Camaro. I've had some cool cars, but I always finance them, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I was in a position where I could buy something, but I didn't have enough money to just throw away and buy, like, I couldn't throw away $30,000 on a really nice Mustang just so that I could pay cash for it and not have a car payment and reduce the overall monthly payments. Because when you combine that with high insurance as a young driver, it's I say young driver, I'm 23. It's like I've still got a bad record though. They say until I think I'm 25 my insurance isn't going to go down. So it's like $300-400 a month for me to drive a car like this, and it's crazy. So I was paying that, and it's just, you're getting robbed. So I decided I'm gonna at least cut down my expenses and not have a car payment. But this worked out because I ended up finding out you can buy salvage cars online. It's a big hassle. So like going to these auctions and winning and losing some, doing the auction sites, I decided not to do it. I would love to get into that at some point, but I decided to just go to an auction reseller. They were called East Coast Auto Source, if anyone wants to look them up. They have a lot of cars, brand new stuff, used stuff, old stuff. I don't know. They have a whole bunch of stuff out in the mountains or foothills, I guess, of Virginia. So anyway, insurance is $75 per month on this salvage title car, and there is no car payment. That is very, very different than a lot of you out there, and myself included in this, buying a car like this, paying, let's say you got a deal, you got like $20,000 Mustang GT, and it's nice. Well, that insurance and car payment combined is probably, there's a B, it's probably going to cost you $500 a month conservatively. I was spending more than that between my insurance and car payment. I was probably spending upwards of $650 a month to own a muscle car, and it's just not right. It's robbery. You're throwing away your money. You're never going to get ahead when you're spending so much money on something that's really not even tangible. It's not making you any money, and it's just taking from you. So I don't recommend it. I'm not saying buying a salvage car is for everybody, and I'm not saying that this was a good idea. This was a complete gamble, total risk. If I bought this car for $15,000 and I had to put a new engine in it, I called Ford and I asked them what it would cost, and they said it was going to be around $13,000 or $14,000. So that right there would have defeated the purpose. So take what I'm saying here lightly, but it is something to consider. You can get yourself a much older salvage car and fix it up and really save yourself a lot of money and not screw yourself so much in the long run. So now I'm going to crank it up and just show you guys that this engine is running and not knocking anymore for, I would say, a very cheap repair. Like I said, I bought an $80 used piston rod that went right down in here. So, to hear this thing run and act like a normal car is pretty cool. ticking, no knocking. No issues. Take it around to the back. So yeah, I'm gonna do a couple of things to the car. One is gonna be exhaust. Right now it has some kind of pipe set up on it, like PYPES, I think, that was on it when I got it. And I think the catalytic converters need to go because they're kind of full of water. You know, I can't have that. I can't have my catalytic converters being on the car knowing that they're full of water. I think that is a disjustice to you know, Cadillacs that need to be converted. So I'm gonna set that up very soon. Probably gonna do straights with an X pipe and no mufflers, no cats, of course. And gonna do some different cool stuff to the car. I just really want to mod it, but first I want to shoot some videos with it. So I'm not gonna spoil the surprise, but the videos that I'm gonna shoot are gonna be a lot of driving. So I'm going to not make it loud just yet, and I don't have the windows tinted or anything. It's basically stock, just because why would I tint the windows when I haven't put the wheels on it? And like, I don't want to put wheels on it until I stance it out in the back, because honestly, these cars, I've wrecked one of these before. I took it off the road at like 75 miles an hour, and I know that's because of the square setup I was running. I had the car cammed out and everything, and I still didn't want to spend the money and get the big tires because I liked burning through the tires all the time. But it's a really good idea to get bigger tires and get more traction so you don't wreck your car into the median and run through like 6 of those guide poles. So anyway, gonna be careful, going to have a lot of fun, drift it around, do some things that people wouldn't consider to be careful. And once like I said, I'm gonna film a lot of videos. If it holds up, if the engine holds up to the test, at some point I want to do supercharger. I just don't know if it's going to hold up to what I'm about to put it through. So stay tuned. Definitely going to make some more videos with this car.